Welcome to Fairfield Public Access Television, Channel 9. We're here today at Democratic Design with a very special artist, Rose Edin. She's been teaching a class here in Fairfield for the Fairfield Art Association, and we're here at her reception for her exhibit. And I'm going to turn it over to her, and she's going to talk about her artwork and how she does it. And
Great.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have 12 pieces here, and I'm going to move from one piece to the other. And so some of you folks might want to go with the paintings to see what we're talking about. But the one in the entryway here is called Pomegranates. And this little boy from China, he was about a year or so, and he was throwing the pomegranates out of the basket from Xi'an. And in my last class in Madison, we had a lady from Xi'an that was with us. But those of you who have been in my class will see that I have used the cobalt blue here too after a slight underpainting, and I used the cobalt blue even on the face tones. Even though his face was very, very light, I used a very slight wash of the cobalt blue and then darker values on his outfit. And also the fruit. Red is very hard to work with, and so I have the oranges, the reds, and the lavenders in layers on that. This one is a Midwestern house, and I did it down in Kansas last fall, and we sat out in location and painted the house similar to what we did today with the yellow house. And then afterwards used liquid mask on the house and the roses and the cobblestones and the tree shapes and the sky behind, the light sky behind the house here. And then came back with a great big wash of my lavenders and blues and reds and yellows and all that, tipped it around and let it run together. The next painting of the Fisherman, I call it Gone Fishing, and you can tell it's not our country because there are 12 lines there and 4 fishermen. And also they're sitting so close together. Of course, this is China, where there isn't a lot of room for everybody. And in this case, I used several photographs, and it is an unusual composition for me, but I felt that the lines going off from the right to the left would pull the painting together. I did a very slight underpainting on that, going to the darker values in the bottom and the right-hand side. The rest of it I did not underpaint. Then over to my right, I have a painting that is called A Woman in Her Garden, and I have used the live flowers in that case with an underpainting, and I did the whole figure with various values of cobalt blue. Then came over the cobalt blue with the oranges, the reds, and the violets. Then I masked out all the flowers and the lady. And those of you who don't know what masking is, it's like a rubber cement that actually saves the area that you've painted. And I usually use the mask on painted surfaces, so it gets a little more understandable. And I also masked out the sky behind the lady, so I have actually 2 layers of mask on that particular piece. The next one to it belongs to my son. He won't let me sell that. He says, "Mom, I want that painting." And so it was chosen by Courage Cards out of Minneapolis to be featured on their cards this year. But it's our wild iris that grow wild in our country by the ponds and all. And they only bloom one day at a time. In other words, the stalk might have 20 buds on it, but the iris will bloom the one day and then it dies and the next one comes out the next day. And it's an unusual flower, but I did an underpainting on the 3 sides of that particular painting, left the upper right almost the way it was. I painted then the irises and the leaves and used mask and put on the darker values, tipped it around, let it run, using some strong purples and blues. Then I did another layer of mask for the leaves and went back into it. We'll just keep moving along, and maybe some of you later on will have questions that I can answer for you. Okay, we'll go to the one on the right, Brasileria, and it's from Portugal, and we had a group of painters in Portugal last spring, and we were in the old university town of Coimbra. And we're coming around the corner, and this interesting sign was there for the restaurant. And this metal umbrella was hanging on the wall. And so I took several photographs, but what really was comical, I thought, was the lady sitting right next to the glass there. And I know the lady was sitting looking out, and I know the sign was going off the upper left-hand side, but I thought that bright yellow umbrella would tie things together, so I took a chance on it. And so I've used my whitest whites. The only whites in the whole painting is on the umbrella. And then, but hopefully your eye goes to the little lady in the lower right, looking off the side there. But it was an interesting thing, and I used 3 layers of mask in that right-hand restaurant and went darker and darker and darker to go back and back and back to get the feeling that you're going really back into the restaurant. The one next to it is entitled Sisters, and that one is also from northern Portugal. And I'm always carrying my camera, especially when I'm in Europe, and trying to photograph interesting things. And the ladies were walking again down the street, trying to get out of the view of my camera. And I put the nuns in the spot in front of the doorway. In other words, artists need to take artist liberties. I did a very strong underpainting here with mostly yellows and reds with just a little blue. And then went back and painted the lavenders in the doorway, and also the oranges and the reds and the blues and all that. The figure of the nuns is all in values of blue, and then the reds and the oranges over that afterwards. Then we'll go on to the gate, and the gate is from California, the coast of California, Cambria, California. And here again the roses were blooming over the gate, and I did an underpainting, saved the white, and carefully drew the archway and masked out the gate and masked out the roses and did a nice big wash. Came back and did another layer of mask on the leaves and got deeper values. The one to the end there of friends standing there talking at the flower market is from France, and it's from Paris, and it's the island right south of Notre Dame Cathedral. And these ladies were standing looking at the flower market. Such an interesting sight again. And here again I did many layers of masking in the background shop, so your eye can go back, back, back into the flower shop there. Okay, we're going to move over here just a minute then, and we'll look at these 3 paintings. The 2 florals, and then the house in Modesto. Now I have 2 florals here that are done with gauze, and I wanted you artists to see this because there's some possibilities with that. I used live flowers in both cases. Drew the flowers carefully, dropped on the color, just an underpainting, dropping on the color, bright pinks and purples and all that, and then masking out all those shapes. And then I poured on the paint from the blues to the yellows to the greens to the lavenders, and when it was and tipped it, And then when it was still wet, I laid the gauze on it and let it dry. And you can look at those closely and you can see the background. You have all these gauze marks and some of the bright colors in the background when you can see a good light on that. And the cosmos has a little more texture than the hollyhocks. Maybe you want to put the camera then on the one to the left here, and I'll talk about those because they're the same technique here. The hollyhocks here I painted from the live flower and masked them all out, and then poured on the paint or put on really heavy paint, tipped it around, and used the gauze the same way. Then after I take the mask off, I refine it and put the bits and pieces of dark. The centerpiece here is from Modesto, California, and it's a Victorian house that the Gallo people from Gallo wine family have restored. And this is the only piece I have in this particular show that does not have the use of any mask. It's an on-location piece, it's a demonstration piece, and we actually sat right there and painted this. So started out in this case with just the blues on the house and drew it carefully like we did today. And then I painted the roses and painted around. Everything is painted around to get the different levels. And there's something very nice about an on-location sparkly piece that has a lot of whites of the paper coming through also. So it's all fun, regardless if you do it with many layers or if you keep it real light like that particular piece. And at home when I have my shows, I have a lot of pieces that are on location pieces that are directly painted, and some of them vignetted like that. So that's basically a little bit about each of the paintings.
Would you like to tell a little bit about yourself, where you live, and?
Oh, sure. To the camera?
Sure. And no, you don't have to.
He wants you to come over here. No?
So
She's going to do an interview. Okay, that's always better.
I should let Mark do this interview because I asked him earlier.
That's okay. I just
thought it would be interesting.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sit right in front of you.
Okay. I'm on TV all the time. Doesn't matter.
And then I said, no, you don't have to. I just thought you could tell where you're from.
Okay. I am from Staples, Minnesota, which is the center of the state of Minnesota. We're near Brainerd. We're right on the edge of the lake country. And I work with a gallery in Pequot Lakes, which is north of Brainerd. And I have a room there with my paintings that I keep supplying paintings all summer. And it's only open for about 5 months out of the year where I have a lot of paintings there.
Now, do you just work in watercolor?
No, I work in oil also, and I work with the knife often with oil. I have done some brush work, but now next month I've reserved for doing a few oils again.
Knife work is totally different.
It's totally different, but in a way it's like the watercolor in that I work with one color spot next to each other, you see. And so, for instance, if I were doing the house I just spoke of, I would put the whites and the yellows right next to each other so you keep building basically the same way.
You
so it's very
obviously
impressionistic.
like watercolor better? It's hard to say.
Yes, I do. I do like watercolor better. Watercolor is my favorite.
Now,
it's so chancy.
Excuse me, did I understand that you put mask over a painted area in some cases?
In just about all cases, I put it over a painted area or an area I want to keep white, the whole area. Otherwise, it's too fakey looking.
Now, one of my high school students, Sarah Freeman, was here, and we were looking at your Gone Fishing picture.
Mm-hmm.
There were some little pebbled areas. Were those done with the salt?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do use salt quite a bit in some of these, and I think you probably saw it on the camera. The use of salt. I can, the one of the hollyhocks up here, I don't know if you want to turn that way, and you can see in the upper right-hand corner, for instance, you can see the salt. And what the salt does, it divides the paint a little bit, so you get just these little lighter spots on the paint, and it makes an interesting texture. Don't always use it, but I do like it.
Now,
In florals, in foliage.
The reason you have so many pictures from around the world is because you give workshops around the world. Some of the places you've been this year, Africa, 2 workshops in Africa.
We took, my husband and I took a group of 28 artists and photographers to South Africa, Victoria Falls in South Africa. And then we went in safari 2 days and saw lots of animals, and I did quite a few wild animals. I have a show back home on South Africa right now. And last spring we had a group of 35 in Portugal, and that was done by Carolyn Holman and myself, who a lot of you people know. And we own a company called Art Adventures. And this fall we're taking a group Vienna to Venice, and that is going to be a wonderful trip. Commercial.
I wish I could go. It sounds wonderful. So you've been, do you know how many places? Just
Well, I have led groups and taught groups. This will be my 18th trip, foreign trip in various
you've been
parts
to
of the world.
China, Portugal, South America,
Brazil,
Europe.
Guatemala. I teach in Honduras every 2 or 3 years. I'm going back there next year. So,
So you're looking for people that
Europe, a lot.
Art Adventures.
Art Adventures, that's what we are.
That sounds great.
Yes.
Could I ask one more question?
Yes.
Sarah was wondering how long different paintings took you. Like the
Okay.
on location piece in California maybe, and then the gone fishing piece.
Okay. Great question, by the way. The on location piece from California.
Listen, Sarah is getting free credit for the next 2 homework assignments because she showed up tonight.
Great. The one from California took, I worked on it one afternoon and part of the next day. So, but it was with a class. So I imagine I worked on it about 7 hours. Because I refine it when I get home. The one I've gone fishing with the Chinese fishermen, I worked on that about 2.5 days. And I do some 30 by 40 watercolors on large pieces, and I might work a whole week on that with many layers of mask. And
Do you concentrate on one piece, or do you have like several paintings going at once?
I try to work through a piece where I know it's going to work. And then I will set it aside in my studio, and I might work on something else, but I'll probably have it upside down or sideways in the studio, so I can keep glancing over there and saying, oh, well, that corner doesn't work very well, and I have to go back and make it work.
I guess I can't count 4 years on one piece since I didn't finish my one that I started 4 years ago in your class. I still need to finish it.
How about 2 years ago? Did you finish those?
Not a one.
Oh, Susan.
You need to have a finishing class, I guess.
I guess I do.
But Rose is very inspiring in our classes, and every day gives us something wonderful new to think about, and a new way of doing things with salt, with mask, with you name it. She comes across with it. So I'd like to thank you, Rose, for coming to Fairfield, and hope we can get you back.
Delight. And Susan's a great organizer. We thank you, Susan.
Thank you.